In fact, there is disruptive innovation going on right now, and it's very drastic in some places. The treatment plants have been there to take care of a problem of just getting rid of a residue, or so to say. But this is now changing so that we have wastewater treatment plants that are being, for instance, net producers of energy through biogas production, for instance. You also see some very drastic changes going on in the energy market, for instance. Now we have a situation where renewable energy has become cheaper on the margin than the old fossil energy. So in fact this changes very much about the business and the logic about large organizations that have been there for quite some time. They are not making money in the same way that they did just 10 or 15 years ago. So there are some very big changes going on. One would sometimes assume that it's all about technology. Some people think that that's really how change happens, that you start with some technological innovation. Well, in one way it's true, because technology changes the relative prices within a system. It changes also where value is created and where the customers or the users can perceive there to be a value. Okay? So new technology can make it possible, for instance, to reuse water in a different way. But apart from technology, there's so much that has to change in society, in the societal dimensions. And we're talking about governance frameworks, for instance, because now if we have a wastewater treatment plant that is also becoming an energy producer, the first question is, are they allowed, according to rules and regulations, to venture into that business? Do their owners allow them to do it? Is it in their statutes, basically? Do they have a mandate to operate as a producer? Not necessarily. So that is part of the social dimensions that are so important. But we shouldn't just think it's all about the rules and regulations. It's also about attitudes very much. There's a very big uphill struggle, I would say, to deal with attitudes and norms, not just regulations. I think that some of the most important and most interesting places in the world to be and try to develop and understand what is actually happening in innovation in water and energy is perhaps the low income, the middle income, and especially the water scarce regions, of course. On one hand, you have got water scarcity, perhaps also energy deficiency, but you also have, shall we say, the lack of incumbent structure that doesn't hold back development in the same way as we are experiencing in the more developed or the richer part of the world. So here in Sweden, for instance, we have a lot of infrastructure already in place, and that keeps us back in one way. I also think that that is perhaps where we will see disruption. If we're talking about disruptive innovation, there will be disruption of the existing infrastructure or the existing models of providing water and energy, just because we have already existing infrastructure in place. Whereas in low-income regions of the world, there is less infrastructure, there's less institutional structures as well. So there's a greater degree of flexibility. And there's really some interesting things going on where we're talking about innovative practices. For instance, if you go into Kibera, which is the largest slum or informal settlement in East Africa, at least, in Nairobi, you find that there are already fantastic, interesting sites where, demonstration sites or facilities where people are turning toilet products, turning basically human excreta into gas that is used for cooking, for heating bath water and so on. So capturing the value through innovative practices and technologies can be done in a very different and very interesting way, also in, shall we say, more flexible and adaptive contexts in low-income countries. So for anyone who's interested in this, I think low-income and middle-income regions are definitely the place to be working. I think that this disruptive innovation is, as I said, is going to come. It's coming from the margin. It's coming from small areas. You know, what the big organizations normally perceive as the periphery. That is where the interesting innovation is happening. So I think from a university point of view, maybe we need to also look at the peripheries more, see what's going on in terms of innovation. Well, if you talk about universities in general, we have for quite some time become more and more specialized, and very much driven by our urge to excel in our specific and rather small scientific disciplines. So that has been, the modus operandi number one, so to say, for the past 50, 60 years of universities. However, now we face a different situation where we need to become much more integrative. Rather than defining the problem up front, internally in academia, we need to do it together with actors from many parts of society, and then use all kinds of skills to solve that problem.